Hey, what up, everybody? It's your boy Carson Fox with another episode of the 2023 West Virginia University football season. So it's Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports. And oh, what a backyard brawl it was. Not from the quality of football, that is, but oh man, for as like great of a day that was to be a Mountaineer fan all day long. If you were there, even going into it Friday evening or showed up in the morning, afternoon, or even just for the game. That was so fun. That was so much fun. I had too much fun. That's why I'm doing this so late at night. I would have liked to do it a little bit earlier in the day, but just man, I was recovering. That was just so much fun all day long. The parking lots were insane. I really think that ESPN College Game Day just missed out on an electric atmosphere because yesterday was exactly what it is to be a West Virginia football fan in an awesome environment. West Virginia really did put on a show. Other than the game itself, at some points in time, and I'll give them credit, and we'll break into that. But that's what I just got to lead off today's episode with is that was everything that it had been prophesied to be going back 12 years ago when this was a Big East rivalry, discontinuing the series as West Virginia in the Big 12 and Pitt as an ACC member. But knowing that the series was going to be coming back, you've had this game circled on your calendar for years. So, unfortunately, the first of this year reintroduced series had to be in Pittsburgh last year, and being at that environment, it was awesome too. In a bigger stadium, being able to fill that out completely, 72,000 fans. But I mean, a Stripe the Stadium, and for as much as like hate, I feel like sometimes Stripe the Stadium gets saying it's unoriginal at this point. Having done it for 10 years, it was a great look, great feel, great crowd. I didn't see any, just other than just usual friendly back and forth with Pitt fans throughout the day. I feel like I talked to even a few of them throughout the day, and they were pretty much pissed beyond belief at Phil Jurkovec, the quarterback of Pitt. So couldn't really get into anything too all that serious, but it was cordial. It was fun. I had a great time. So if you were there, I'd love to hear about it, what your experience was. Put it in the chat or comment me on Twitter because that was so much of an electric atmosphere. So let's get into the game itself to talk about it because I think there were some defining moments within the game that I want to spotlight. And it started off shaky, back and forth throughout like the first half, and that was the whole feel of the entire game. Really, is it went really fast. There were some longer-ish drives. There was one that in the second half, in the third quarter, that spanned 7.5 minutes. So with so many runs on the day between both teams, only hold on, let me get the official numbers here. 20 passes attempted by Jurkovec for 8 completions. West Virginia only attempting 11. With so many runs, the clock continued to run for 3 hours. So it felt like it was a faster game than sometimes what we've been accustomed to. Still kind of getting used to this new moving clock rule in college football. So I thought the was really impressed me starting off was the West Virginia defense in the first quarter holding Pitt to a field goal on Pitt's very first drive. Spanned almost a 70-yard drive starting out at the Pitt 30, but waltzed all the way down to the 4th and 3 or a 3rd and 3 attempt, and West Virginia's defensive front stuffed it. You knew that was going to happen. Rodney Hammond stuffed up the middle. Russell Hammond, Trey Lathan. Hammond Russell the fourth. Sorry, had that in the box score there. Coming in with the tackle on the play. That was just a great way to start it off because if Pitt goes up 7, gives them confidence on their first drive, maybe it was a turn. I mean, early on, almost felt like a little bit of a turning point in this game to not get Phil Jurkovec comfortable to keep him off his toes, and they never scored a touchdown. So coming back, it was slow for West Virginia. Once Garrett Green especially left the game, bringing in Nico Markey all cold off the bench to to be a proverbial starter playing for 4 quarters. So it really was the Nico Marchiol game after that point. Threw a touchdown to Cole Taylor on really more of an extended run play. And you weren't stopping Cole Taylor on that little waggle out. He's just so big. He was moving at such high speed, had him in full speed, turned his shoulders, got in for the end zone. Where I will say that this could have been a potential game-changing play, or series at least, was in the second quarter. West Virginia's driving, and it's at this point still a 3-0 game. You get all the way down to Pitt's 14-yard line, and a fumbled exchange between Marchiol and CJ Donaldson on a 2nd and 8. That was really you can't, against better opponents. Let me put it this way. Against better opponents, you can't get away with that. Whenever you turn the ball over deep in enemy territory and don't get anything to show for it, they'll make you pay. When I'm talking about an Oklahoma down the road, or maybe even a TCU in a couple weeks, or Texas Tech this upcoming week, better teams will make you pay from those mistakes deep in opposing territory. But thankfully for West Virginia, I thought its defense from there on out was probably the most confident that I'd seen a West Virginia secondary since the 2020 defense. And it's interesting finding this note that the last time that West Virginia held an FBS opponent to under 7 points was TCU in 2020, when West Virginia beat TCU 24-6. So not giving up a touchdown a day, just 2 field goals, and just were wreaking havoc on Pitt's quarterback, Phil Jurkovec. I really think we saw kind of a case example of what happened with JT Daniels after the Texas game. That's been my thing with JT. The legacy of JT Daniels is he got it went to his head, kind of developed the yips, and his mechanics got all out of whack, and it's just performance went to shit. And that's unfortunately what happened now in back-to-back weeks for Phil Jurkovec. I think he's developed some sort of the yips. One of the first interception that he threw to Aubrey Burks was just, you've watched the route, 3 wide receivers kind of come across, one short, one medium, one high. If he was throwing for the deep ball, he probably underthrew him at least 10 to 15 yards. So for a guy who was a former 5-star recruit and looked like at one point in time that he was headed toward the NFL, I mean, I don't know if it's his mechanics, or he's not seeing the right. The interceptions that he threw, the one he threw in triple coverage even, and I was really impressed also with the return yardage on the interceptions by Burks, by Beanie Bishop, and the last one was just incredible ball skills by Malachi Ruffin. I think he even took out his frustration on MJ Devonshire for last year's contest on the punt return at the very end, body slamming him to the turf. That was awesome to see. But what I really liked about the interception return is those are just free yards. Those are just free yards for your team that make up in the battle of field position so much of a difference, because it's not a down. It's not costing you anything. So if you get the interception, not only are you getting the ball, but you're getting free yards on top of a turnover. Those are pivotal. So whenever West Virginia was able to not only collect turnovers, but turn those into drive starts in enemy territory, that was the difference right there in the game. One leading to a touchdown, one leading to a field goal. That was phenomenal. So I hope, and this is what I hoped and prayed for because of this game, that this helps build some confidence in this West Virginia defense, that now they're not going to feel so intimidated or so scared that they can make a difference. Because I was in this game in attendance, wasn't able to really have too much of a high view to see the numbers or to look at the snap counts. But having Marcus Floyd back out onto the field, I didn't see number 7 Andrew Wilson-Lamp out there very much. So I thought Ruffin had a great performance. It's nice to see Burks come up with the interception, and same with Bishop. What's that already make? 2 on the year for him. So West Virginia now already has more interceptions in 3 games than it did the entire 2022 season. So that just shows right there how much the turnovers mean for this team winning games. Now, one thing that was concerning was the offensive play. Like I may have already said this, but I feel like that game set college football back 50 years. This was not a spectacular offensive performance at all. Um, and if it was more so just a fear to pass the ball or just to win at absolutely all costs, that if you were going to go down in Neal Brown's case to lose this game, you were going to lose it swinging with your home run hitters, and that being C.J. Donaldson and also Jalen Anderson, who's come on and I think has established himself now. Not seen really Justin Johnson in 3 games, that he is the number 2 back for West Virginia behind C.J. Donaldson to spell him. Didn't see as many carries also for Donaldson on the day as I would have thought. I would have thought we would have seen somewhere upwards of 30, but just 18 attempts, 102 yards, and a touchdown. So C.J. being C.J., one of the Big 12 conference's best, setting himself up nicely for a potentially all Big 12 season. And then conversely, the rush defense for West Virginia holding Rodney Hammond in check for the most part. 14 attempts, just 49 yards on the day, and then Jurkovec being the second leading rusher at 45 yards or 35 after losses of 10 due to sacks and hits on the 1 sack on the day. He did have a 13-yarder. So just comparing both of these offenses, I think when you average less than 4 yards per carry, it's pretty 3 yards in a cloud of dust, feeling like an old school Big Ten type of game out there. That's what kind of it had this feel for a long portions of the game. Anything that went for over 10 yards, pass or run, was like, oh my gosh, what a big play. So that was a little bit, concerning. But because of the turnovers, it made up for it. So you weren't really necessarily asking Nico Marchiol to do too much. I think the injury to Garrett Brown just kind of threw a wrench really into the game plan. West Virginia wanted to do what Nico Marchiol was comfortable with. Wasn't going to put too much pressure on him to throw over the top. You saw a few first down completions. I think Hudson Clement being one of those passes later on in the game. Or no, had a 10-yard reception. Cole Taylor, but only 6 completions on the day. It wasn't. So I would say, what is your level of concern? I'm concerned to see if Garrett Green, what his injury is. So that's why I'm really looking forward to tuning into the Neal Brown press conference, hearing what he has to say. If it's a low or high ankle sprain, I watched the play. I mean, he wasn't really hit all that much. I think it was just like a read option that either he got like stepped on or just barely clipped on the play. So I want to know what happened on that play and what's to the extent of the injury. If we're seeing Nico Marchiol, is this really his? Is this his time? Is this time to take the reins as the starting quarterback for this program? Is the time now? Or is Garrett Green going to be healthy enough to come into play? Because I really, really would have liked to see more of what he and Donaldson could have done in the read option game. And then would that have opened things up potentially to throw the ball, expand the playbook a little bit more to throw the ball down the field, because we didn't see that. And then I think once that Jurkovec just started showing signs of shattering, that Neal Brown played it safe, went with the heavy ground game, did what West Virginia, and that's what I think. I think West Virginia really took the game away from Pitt once those interceptions started happening. Is once that final, that chink in the armor started to show, that West Virginia went in with the kill with, we're just going to ground and pound you. We're going to rely on our defense. And Jurkovec really fumbled. He really that was one of the worst performances out of a quarterback that I've seen in a very long time by a West Virginia opponent. I'm thinking in 2021, when West Virginia played Oklahoma State, a game in which I was at, and West Virginia only scored 3 points on the day. That was one of the worst quarterback performances I'd ever seen. But out of an opposing quarterback, he just looked like he didn't have any confidence. West Virginia smelled blood They went in for the kill and they stuck with it, relied on the crowd, and the defense just had so much intensity that you weren't gonna score on them from there on out. So there's not much more I can say about the game itself. In that perspective, I think that unless you started to see you saw more of a passing attack and especially a downfield passing attack in this one, it you really just had very simplistic rushes back and forth between the two teams. And for Pitt was never really able to establish a passing game off that. So when West Virginia had its chances, I liked what I saw out of Nico Marchiol besides the fumble. So I think he played well enough to win, had a passing grade, I would say, on the day. Didn't ask him to do too much. So if you weren't going to ask him to do all that much, he just did what you asked him to do. And West Virginia came away with a victory, a very well game managed performance by Marchiol. But I don't think that's going to be, you can't do that against a good team like Texas Tech next week. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I don't want to get into that matchup. I'll do that later on in the week as we get closer to Saturday. But for this game, it was good enough. It was good enough of a performance that you needed to win. Rely on Donaldson. You knew he was going to be your horse. Having a 100-yard performance with a touchdown. It was nice to see. West Virginia or Marchiol adding a passing touchdown, even though it was an extended run to Cole Taylor. But the 3 interceptions, shout out to those 3 big plays by Aubrey Burks, by Malachi Ruffin, and by Beanie Bishop, and the returns thereafter them. So that's it. I want to say also, I think that this saved Neal Brown's job. I don't know, just as the intensity of the day, I mean, really Wednesday on, even in up to pregame on Saturday, you felt a lot of pressure that this was going to be the moment for Neal Brown to have to win this game no matter what. So I think that kind of in the back of everyone's mind played a role in the type of safe kind of game that was called to win. So even though West Virginia covered, so great, a 17-6 kind of game wasn't something that you're hanging your hat on. It's not like it's 2012 Baylor. You had the exact opposite out there, and from terms of like ingenious type of offense that was run in that game. So great for Neal Brown, great for the program to beat a rival, to now have won 5 out of your last 6 for the Mountaineers in the backyard brawl. Great to see. And getting revenge for the loss last year at Acrisure Stadium. That was great. 5 out of 6, I'm sorry, at home in the last 20 years of the backyard brawl. So that was great. Great for the home crowd. I hope that West Virginia can now build off this, gain some confidence. I don't think any significant injuries were sustained other than the one that was to Garrett Green. I think we saw CJ Donaldson go down for a play or so in this game, but then come back. So want to hear about the injury report come tomorrow. Want to see if West Virginia is a little bit closer to getting Montre Miller back for the season, or if he's going to be out for extended periods of time. I did see him hopping around in one of the post-game highlight videos with the secondary guys. So maybe he's a little bit closer to being able to go out there and give it, or give you some snaps. So we'll see on that. I still think that there's I think it's a great weekend to be a Mountaineer. It's a great feeling coming off this win, to being able to hold this over Pitt and its fans for a whole nother year until the backyard brawl is back. And it was great to see Nico Marchiol come out. So I'm wearing his jersey for this video. Once again, a guy who gets called on late in the year against Oklahoma State a year ago, win. Called in this performance, win. So he's already got 2 big wins on his resume as the predominant quarterback. You won't say a starting quarterback, at least for but coming in there, playing the majority of the game and getting a victory. So having like a Nick Foles type of feel and performance out of him. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself that this is only game 3. It's a long season. You got 9 more games on the schedule, a huge one this upcoming week against Texas Tech, and a TCU team that's really rebounded since that week 1 loss to Colorado, picking up a Big 12 win this past Saturday at Houston. TCU or Texas Tech crushing Tarleton State, an FCS opponent, at home. So you have and it was another wacky weekend in the Big 12. BYU probably having the game of the week, coming up with a win on the road at an SEC opponent in Arkansas. But Oklahoma State was really the big loser, losing to South Alabama. Let me bring up the scoreboard across the Big 12 for you here real quick. Yes, Missouri beating Kansas State 30-27. Ohio it's a bad year to not have Iowa State on the schedule. They get beat by Ohio 10-7. Miami of Ohio beating Cincinnati, who beat Pitt a week ago. And then Kansas just escaping Nevada 31-24 on the road. So this conference as a whole looks like it's taken a whole deep breath exhale, and they're down here from a quality of team standpoint. And I was kind of thinking that this was going to happen, that there was going to be a meat grinder of the mids this year. Oklahoma looks like its offense is rolling. I know they've yet to really play anybody too stout for the season so far. The Red River rivalry will come up in a couple of weeks, so we'll finally get to see 1, 2, 3 weeks until the Red River rivalry, the first Saturday of October. And they got Cincinnati, who they'll probably crush. Then they got Iowa State, who I know always plays them tough, but Iowa State looks to be like the bottom dweller of this conference for this year. So it's Oklahoma, it's Texas, and a whole lot of teams who are still trying to figure out who they are, how good can they be. I still think Kansas State's a good program. I just think they lost a lot. Malik Knowles, Deuce Vaughn, they're trying to replace a lot, but they're still that Chris Kleiman type of stout defensive team. So with that being said, this provides a lot of opportunity for West Virginia to put together what I've said since day one of this season, and even going back to the preseason, of getting to eight wins, including a bowl game. So it starts here. That was a great opportunity to propel yourself in to this midpoint of the season, where we're looking at 5 really tough games in a row: Texas Tech, TCU, Houston on the road, Oklahoma State at home for homecoming, and then on the road for UCF. So far so good, getting 2 wins. If West Virginia can get to 3-2 by the end of September, so winning one of these 2 next games between TCU and Texas Tech, I think this is a victory. Though, if you lose both of these games coming up, then you're a little bit concerned. Does Neal Brown's hot seat reemerge to as hot as it was by kickoff of this past Saturday? So if you have 2 losses. So don't want to get too far on myself. Just want to stop right there. Say it's always great to beat Pitt. Always, always, always. It looks like they're really in shambles right now, given their quarterback situation and the way this performance happened in Morgantown this past Saturday. So kudos to all the fans, everybody who was able to attend this game. I hope it was a great Saturday wherever you were to find out that West Virginia won the 106th edition to the Backyard Brawl. So I'll be back later in the week, and we'll break it down about the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So hail West Virginia. Have a good night, everybody.